Hi everyone, Zarkenpatch89 here with another deck tech. This one is a deck that recently I was watching one of my fellow streamers play. His name is Nathaniel, sorry. His Twitch is Twitch TV Card Holder. He's a co-owner of the Card Holder brand. They've been selling Magic Online cards forever. Um, he's a really good guy. He actually gave me like 20 credits on MTGO to start on MTGO, and because I'm a streamer, a small streamer, um, he was helping me out, and I totally appreciate it. And definitely want to send you his way, and I definitely want to let you know that this was something he had been working on as well. He made some changes to a deck that he had seen and made some better upgrades to it and made it much more viable. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's definitely a cool deck, and he's a cool guy, so make sure to check him out. I like to call this deck Awaken Time Control. He had another name for his, but that's what I'm going to call it. It's a banned ramp slash control deck that basically you just ramp into extra turn cards and use Awaken as well. Awaken is going to be the main win condition of your deck, but there's also planeswalkers and all that fun stuff. So, you win however you have to, but usually the main win condition is going to be your Awaken cards. So we'll get right into the deck here. Our first row of cards here are all of our ramp. So we got 3 Leaf Guilders for just basic ramp, along with the 4 Rattleclaw Mystics. Just any cards we can get to get ourselves ramped up faster as we can. The Rattleclaw Mystic is nice because even if you don't have the green, like let's say it's a bad position, you don't have green, for some reason you don't have any forest or green mana, you can morph it face down and turn it face up. You have a green mana then, and you can make green mana then. Plus, it also helps you ramp up to Nice's Renewal, even if you don't necessarily have enough land for it that you originally have to, because you can tap it right away. Like he gives you a total of 4 mana the turn you flip him over. So if you have 4 land in play, flip him over, get all this land. You can play Nice's Renewal, which is really nice. Because then you end up getting close enough to use some of the other cards we'll look into later. It's pretty sweet. So these are our 2 creatures for our ramp. We then have Explosive Vegetation, and then because that'll get us 2 basics. A majority of the time, unless you don't have the colors you need for other spells, you're going to be looking for islands for this. Another thing I can show you later on why you'll be looking for mostly islands, but yeah, unless you're in a situation where you need plains or forests. Nice's Renewal, it's going to help you catch up in life if you're getting beat down pretty early. It also searches for a ton of basics of any type. So it's a really nice card. After you play this card, you should usually start going off. You play this card, you have an extra turn card in your hand or something. As soon as you play this card, the next turn you should start going off and hopefully consistently hitting the combo and going off, basically. It's not exactly a combo, but if you can just keep hitting the extra turn cards and using Awaken stuff, it really feels like a combo. Next we have our Planeswalkers. We have Jace, we have Kiora, and we have Ugin. This is what makes it expensive. I mean, you get the lands, which, aren't terribly expensive, but then you have Jaces, and these are expensive as all hell. But they're very good in the deck. They're definitely useful. Jace and Kiora are amazing cards together. Just the interaction. If you're not going to neg 2 Kiora, which is usually what you're going to do most of the time, if you have Jace in play and you play Kiora, you can tap Jace, draw a card, discard a card, use Kiora to untap Jace, and tap Jace again. It's pretty cool. It helps you flip over your Jace faster if you don't have enough cards in your graveyard. But most of the time, because of our lands that we have with Delve in our deck, we're going to be wanting to use the Neg 2, sometimes not even grabbing a creature or a land off of it just because we want more stuff in our graveyard. It makes a really good engine for that kind of stuff. And then the other cool thing is when you're constantly feeding your graveyard with our Neg 2, you use Jace, Vern's Prodigies, his negative ability, which is the flashback. Flip over. The -3, the -3 ability that lets you play something from your graveyard. Let's say you accidentally mill one of your extra turn cards using Kiora because you can't put it to your hand. Well, then you can use Jace's -3, play it from your graveyard. Pretty cool stuff. They work very well together on multiple levels. So I think in general these cards in the future are going to be seeing a lot of play together. And then Ugin, kind of a catch-all, kind of just sweep the board if you need to. It is a win condition if you need it to be, but you usually don't need it to be a win condition. And then we'll go to our last cards, the bread and butter of the deck. We got 3 planar outbursts. You can't really see the last one underneath. 3 planar outbursts. These are part of your control, just making sure they don't have too many creatures. If you need to cast it without Awaken, you obviously can. But usually you want to be casting it with Awaken just to make one of your lands into creatures and kind of go from there. It's nice just chaining planar outbursts together too. You play one. If you have a Jason, play your -3, you play another one after you Awaken the first one. And you all of a sudden you're sitting here with this creature in play and you're basically plague winning their board. Or, imagine if you're playing the Dragon decks and use Crux of Fate. It's kind of the same idea. You're taking their whole board out while you sit there with creatures, and then you can attack. It's pretty cool. It feels really nice when you're able to do that as well. Next, we go over to the 7 extra turn cards in the deck. Sadly, they exile themselves, but obviously Wizards did this for a reason, because this deck would be so much better if part of Water Veil didn't exile itself and you have Jace in the format. This would be pretty absurd. Temporal Trespass has Delve. That's, the nice part about it. It costs 11 mana. It's a lot. But when you're able to constantly be putting stuff in your graveyard between Jace and Kiora and, just casting spells in general, or your early ramp, and if your mana creatures die, and your fetches, it doesn't take that much to be able to delve to play this, especially with how much you're ramping. You're able to usually pay, 8 of the mana by itself just to cast the card because you have so much mana. Next, we got the main card of the deck, Part the Water Veil. Very, very, very sweet card. I think until you start chaining these things together, you don't really realize how strong the deck is. When you're able to Awaken 6, a extra turn, like after you had just swept their board or something, and they play let's say you sweep the board and they play a Planeswalker, alright, and that's their play for the turn. They play the Planeswalker, you go, alright, I'm going to take an extra turn and make a dude, make a 6/6. That's awesome, because now all of a sudden, even if it's like a Gideon, they make a 2/2 with Gideon and then they say go, they can't really do anything else. You take your extra turn, you swing in, hit their creature, and then you go to your next turn. And then if you have another turn after that, if you have another Part of the Water Veil, play another Part of the Water Veil, attack again into their, into their face. It starts getting really ridiculous when you're able to start chaining these things together. It's nice that the creatures get haste, so if you have Part of the Water Veil and you have 10 mana, you can tap 9 of it and the extra one can attack the turn, then you get an extra turn to kill the Planeswalker. It's really nice. It's really cool. It's a really cool card. It's obviously, not an expensive card. It's very limited in what it can do, but it's very good in the current format that it's in, if you take the time to look at the card and what it can do. And then lastly, we have Dig Through Times. This is usually looking for these 3 cards. It can obviously also help you dig for Ugin, but for most of the part, you're going to be trying to look for ways to take extra turns, ways to make your lands into creatures. That's usually the majority of what you're doing with the Dig Through Times. We'll go over to our lands here. We got some Prairie Streams, a Canopy Vista, a bunch of Windswept Heaths. I feel like this deck could use 2 more fetches, a couple Flooded Strands maybe. Maybe take out a couple islands or an island in a forest, something like that. Because you can still search for either of these with the Windswept Heath or the Flooded Strand. So it doesn't hurt to have more fetches. And the reason I want to have more fetch is just another way to help the deck be able to cast the delve spells. Um, just the 1 or 2 extra cards in the deck that are being able to be put into your graveyard really do help it out. So yeah, 2 more of these might be useful for now. It's working well with just the 4 of them. Next, we have Lumbering Falls, which is bar none the best card to put Awaken on, because when you're, when you're able to, part the Water Veil, Awaken, put 6 counters onto this thing, and you take an extra turn, even if you had to like tap it for the turn to play the part the Water Veil, all of a sudden you have a 6/6 Lumbering Falls that on the next turn you can use the Manland ability, turn it into a 9/9 Hexproof, and just attack into them with a 9/9 Hexproof. It's awesome. This is, if you can get this thing awakened, it's usually how you're going to win the game. It's alright if you can get it onto a forest or, island or whatever, but usually if you can get it onto a Lumbering Falls, that's the best because you can do it hexproof. I'd played a game earlier against a red-green ramp deck that had ramped into Ulamog, but the problem was I'm sitting there with a Lumbering Falls with enough mana that, it was a 16/16 at the time. It was a huge Lumbering Falls because I'd cast 3 Part the Water Veils, and he had cast Ulamog, and but the problem was is he targeted it, and I'm like, I'll animate it, and it'll have hexproof, and now it's, a 19/19, and it's just like, and I'm sitting there with a sideboard card Stasis Snare in my hand, so all of a sudden I Stasis Snare the Ulamog and attack him for 19. It's sweet. It feels really nice. And then we have our basic lands. We have a whole bunch of them. It's nice having this many anyways, just because these will come into play untapped if you just draw them. And it's really easy for them just to come into play untapped then because there's so many. And islands are the most important because you have so many, over here, so many double and you have triple cost blue spells over here that you really need a lot of islands in the deck. You don't have to worry so much about the planar outburst because all of these give you white mana as well. And just the 2 planes in the deck just to look for off of Nisa's Renewal and Explosive Vegetation are just nice to throw in just in case you need the extra white mana. Alright, we'll go over our sideboard. We have 2 Stasis Snares in the deck. Like I said, they're very good against Ulamog or other big annoying creatures that you have to get out of the way. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's also pretty decent against if you're playing against an aggro deck, just another way to deal with their early threats. Also, Jadi Offshoot is another aggro card, or against aggro card, I should say. 0/3 that gains you life whenever land comes into play is pretty good, especially with fetches and explosive vegetation and Nisas and stuff like that. And then the rest is pretty much all kind of like control type stuff, or like Dragonlord Ojutai is very good against like Abzan decks because they can't, while it's untapped, they can't just Abzan charm it, and it gives you a lot of play against them. You can bring in other stuff like Negate against Abzan as well, especially if it's like a mid-range version of Abzan, or like Black Jeskai Black. It's also good against them, and then you can bring in Negates and Dispels and stuff, and you can kind of deal with all of their stuff then. So it's just kind of another finisher against them. And if you go against like hard blue control, like an Esper control deck, you have Guy's Revenge in here that you just ramp into. It's a super sweet card that, quite honestly, you go ahead and it's a haste threat that after you sweep the board or something, they drop a Planeswalker or something. It does tons of damage. If they drop if they play their own, like let's say an Ugin. Even if they plus it, let's say, put it up to 9, if that's just their threat for the turn, they play it and ping you, you drop this thing and smack it for 8, it's down to one counter then. And obviously other Planeswalkers, or if you swept the board, or if you took an extra turn and you need something else to do on your next turn if you don't have enough Awaken stuff, he's in there. He can't be countered, so he's awesome against the blue decks, and he can't be targeted by 9 green stuff. So he's amazing against Esper. And then, obviously, like I said, Negates and Dispels. These are, other anti-control cards that help you either get your combo off or protect what you have in play. So yeah, that's pretty much a deck. It's, you know, in terms of price, it's, you know, mid-range in price. You know, you got obviously the Jaces are pretty expensive. Cure is not that expensive. Ugin's expensive, but you only use one. All of these cards are pretty cheap, honestly. Dig Through Time's really cheap now because it got banned in formats, and Part the Water Veil was never really used in anything. Neither was Temporal Trespass. Planar Outburst is already just kind of a cheap sweeper because we already have End Hostilities, so it's kind of like, well, you know, we have so many choices of sweepers now, so that card's pretty cheap too. So it's literally just Jace, Ugin, and the lands. And other than that, everything else is really cheap. I mean, Ojutai's, you know, up there, but overall for a standard deck and in current standard is it's not that expensive compared to, you know, trying to play Jeskai Black or something like that. So yeah, that's the deck. I definitely suggest trying it out if you like the deck. It's completely different than a lot of the other decks you're going to see in standard right now. So if you want to do something different, it's definitely really fun. Like I said, I definitely suggest you go check out Nathaniel at his stream on Twitch. He streams pretty much every day. At least every day I've seen him on. He's a part of Card Hoarder, so if you want to get any MTGO cards, go through Card Hoarder. They have a website and they have the bots on MTGO. But make sure to try to support him. He's an awesome guy. Go ahead and watch his streams and give him all the love that you can. I do stream as well. Not a popular streamer. If you want to come and check me out, that's awesome. I appreciate it. Twitch.tv/ZarKimpachi89. Go ahead and I'll put the links for both of our Twitches in the description as well. Thanks for coming out and checking the video, and I will see you guys next time.